The Pentagon tests machine learning technologies aiming to increase data sharing among combatant commands. Those experiments are part of the larger Joint All-Domain Command and Control, or JADC2, guiding framework. Todd Harrison is Director of Defense Budget Analysis and the Aerospace Security Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. He's writing about battle networks and the future force for CSIS. Todd, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, what is JADC2 and what's its purpose?
Yeah, so JADC2 stands for Joint All-Domain Command and Control, and it's the military's vision for what their battle network should look like in the future. And the idea is you want to make all of these different platforms and payloads and sensors across our military work together and be able to share data more seamlessly, securely, and reliably. And then you also want to extend that interoperability to our allies and partners that fight alongside us. And this is important because in modern warfare, advantage accrues to those who can see farther and clearer, act faster, and at greater range, and then be able to deny the ability to do so to the other side. So that's what the idea is behind JADC2.
And the JADC2 framework is important to testing new warfare technologies.
It is, and so to understand how we can get more advantage from the new technologies that we're fielding. You know, if you take, for example, the F-35 is our latest fifth-generation strike fighter. You know, it was not built with this idea of integration in mind. And so the F-35 can't actually communicate directly with our other fifth-generation fighter, the F-22. And so that's something that DoD is increasingly working on. How can we get these things to interoperate with one another and ultimately build a larger network of networks where, you know, an F-35, an F-22, a tank on the ground, a ship at sea, a satellite up in space can all connect in different ways seamlessly and with resilience.
So along with testing machine learning capabilities, what are some of the efforts underway now for JADC2 and military battle networks?
Well, there are a lot of efforts underway right now. So within JADC2, you've got the Air Force. Their main contribution is known as the Advanced Battle Management System, ABMS. The Navy's got something it's working on called Project Overmatch. The Army has got something called Project Convergence. And then you've got other smaller projects going on in DARPA and the Office of Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. They've got a number of efforts going on. And even some of the COCOMs, like Special Operations Command, are trying to develop some of the enabling technologies that will ultimately go into JADC2 in the future.
So you write in your report that the progress for advancing battle networks is slow, despite that obviously we need to move a little bit faster on that. Why has progress been slow?
Well, there are a number of reasons for that. One is it requires a cultural shift away from focusing on the big platforms to instead focus on payloads. Things like sensors and communications and data processing. And also, I think that there's been a bit of a failure of communication within the military and between the military and Congress. And some of the funding cuts that we've seen have been due in part to the inability of the services to clearly articulate what exactly they're building, right? They're very good at articulating the need, the threats, the advantage that JADC2 will provide. But when it comes to talking about what exactly are these programs building, there's not been a lot of detail in some cases.
So tell me about the 5 functional elements that you define. You talk about sensor, communications, processing, decision, effects. What does all this mean, and how can that outline help speed up the progress for these overall battle networks?
Yeah, well, I proposed this framework of 5 functional elements just to help give people a common lexicon for talking about JADC2 so they can better define what piece of the problem they're working on. And so you need all of these things to build a battle network, right? You need sensors, you need communication systems. So we're talking about radios, things like that. You need data processing elements where you can actually process that sensor data and do analysis on it. And then you need decision elements, where you've got decision makers that you can even put artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms in that to help aid decision making, or in some cases, for lower level decisions, you could automate it. And then, of course, you have the effects element. That's when you go out and actually do something to affect the battle space. It could be kinetic or non-kinetic, right? And so, we've got to better define and communicate, what is ABMS building? Is it building communication, part of the communication element? Is it building part of the sensor element? What is it? Or is it multiple elements that it is working on? And so I think, just having a better framework for communicating that will go a long way to building support in Congress, better, communicating among the military services, and, making sure that we are making progress moving these capabilities forward.
Well, Todd, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for being on the program. I appreciate it.
Glad I could do it. Thank you.